Hi, and welcome to another episode of DisrupThis. DisrupThis, as you may know, talks about emerging tech, how that is changing, emerging customer and user behavior, how that is changing. And that lays a new landscape, a new opportunity for being able to build products differently, to be able to build customer experience differently. And these are the conversations that we have within these podcasts. Now, in every session, we have an opportunity of talking to a different expert, a different leader from across the world, and to hear their perspectives. And today, we have the opportunity of having Mahinder Narang, who is leading product with Commonwealth Bank in Australia. So, Mahinder, love to hear a bit more about your journey before we start.
Hey everyone, thanks Amber for calling me here, for having me here. Hey everyone, Mahinder, a tech product guy, been in this industry for almost 20 years now. Been part of the engineering culture earlier, and now into looking after products and trying to solve, customer problems and how to make business sense out of it. For the last 5 years, I've relocated to Australia and loving every bit of being part of the Australian product.
Fantastic, fantastic. Lovely to have you here, Mahinder. Thank you so much for your time. So, there's so much going on. We are at this cusp and this point where there is emerging technologies. There's a lot of focus on artificial intelligence, machine learning. Uh, there is a lot of focus in terms of reorging companies, how you need to staff product teams, how you need to staff design team, technology teams in response to this as well. There's so much of flux. There's, in fact, somewhere I was reading, and this was a spiritual context. The spiritual context was that 2025 is an year of transformation, and everything is to the extent of change. What's your thought? Where are things going? What are the changes that you see?
That's a great point to start, Amber. I think what we are seeing is the early start of a massive opportunity space that is arising with the tools that are emerging around artificial intelligence, LLMs, and other. Uh, so we have to look at from an organization and organizational setup perspective and how those things are kind of really impacting. When I look at from a massive organization, large organization, corporate's perspective, uh, my sense is that most of these organizations are in early exploratory stage in terms of how they can really embed these tools to gain productivity and to reach out to their consumers and try to understand their consumers better. Uh, and what will happen is that as those tools are getting kind of explored out, the leadership and the middle managers explore out these tools and try to see what direction it can take them, and what are the synergies that are emerging. What we'll see is that each of these organizations will have to go back to the drawing board and kind of then map out what is the new organization structure going to look like with the advent of these tools and the productivity gains as everyone is talking greatly about, and then lay a new foundation of an organizational org, which is maybe AI native first or AI first. And I think things will emerge from there. It's easy for a startup to kind of adopt these tools and pivot fast and kind of fail fast from there. But when I look at from a large organization perspective, where it's a risk first culture or a compliance first culture, they're really, they can't just go wrong massively on with any of these
Very
technologies.
interesting.
I think they're at the early cycle and they're still evolving.
But is there then an approach towards micro experiments to lay the ground for something like this? Because I agree with you. You're correct. The scale of companies uh, such as these is that you cannot have an AI transformation overnight. You cannot say that the old way of doing things, the old way of building things, old way of digital transformation can just go away like that on that. But is there a potential? How do you start?
I think uh, I think the start of anything is to kind of embed these tools in your day to day work and see what are the opportunities these tools are giving you. Right. Uh, Take for example, right? We talk a lot about agentic tools and everything. and there is, when I look at a problem at a scale perspective, where you have a lot of consumer queries coming to you just to answer some of the things or understand your product
Mm.
better, can you really kind of have a have a AI tool which kind of addresses the needs of the customer base you have, say merchants or the other customer base, and can you really, can you have a first layer which is AI or agentic there, which can address the queries and kind of give you the scale or a disproportionate growth trajectory there. I think as those foundations are built in and they're established, I think organization will go back to, again, as I said, will go back to the drawing board and kind of take all the learnings and map out their own journeys. It may it may have different meaning for different organizations. For compliance and risk heavy organization, take the financial institutions, take the big corporates. They may adopt these in day to day kind of compliance or risk management or fraud management rather than directly consumer facing. Whereas if you look at some of the startups, they may just get these tools right at the front as the first point of contact with the consumers and then take it back to the human. So it really will evolve. I think that evolution has really not been very clear. I think everyone is trying to be, at this point, they're just experimenting. Take for example, I know of organizations where they've really empowered the middle management to go and use each of the tools and come back with all the learnings and share the learnings so that those learnings can be embedded to kind of build the next organizational structure and the next organization, which is more futuristic.
It makes a lot of sense. So it's trying and testing use cases to see where things are actually working out, and then probably there's a scaling which happens in that context that can be done because you know the way I'm experiencing in my conversations that there is a singular perception or singular definition of what AI people think it is, right? Either it's a NLP based interaction with ChatGPT or something like that, or it is generative AI which is producing text based or image based or video based outputs, etc. But that's where the limitation is what I'm hearing. But what I understand with a bit more research in that AI is a field by itself because AI technologies and algorithms, etc., the breadth and depth is massive. So there is a lot of opportunity. But then if you're doing digital transformation, it's not about just putting NLP, which is being able to directly text write something or just have a conversation as a best way of serving the customer. Because maybe in some use cases, it is more frustrating to have this way of serving the customer than what they had previously, where they just were clicking two buttons and things were getting done. But now they have to describe the whole thing and type it down. And maybe that's not the best use case. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah. No, it's quite true. I think those dark patterns and kind of really leaving a user, you know, uh, uh, the question I think every organization or every use case has to ask is, what is the outcome we are trying to derive out of that, and what is the best tool there.
Mm.
Again, I think there is. I think the from an end user perspective, there is a lot of there's a lot of confusion in the minds, if I can use that word. What is a LLM? What is a AI? What is a ML? And how it all comes together, right? And if you go into organization, barring the few teams of say marketing or product or technology, I think the entire org needs to be brought in terms of what does this means for us? How we gonna what are the problems it can solve, and what are the best use cases we can solve. So, uh, you know, uh, the way I look at it is that. Uh, it's not a cookie cutter. AI is not a cookie cutter that it will solve everything. Some organization, as I said, some organizations may want it to be more consumer facing. Some organization may want it to be more platform oriented and kind of solve them to scale at really scale it out. Uh, and all these evolutions are at a very early stage, if I may say that, right? We have seen certain organizations saying, hey, we don't need any customer care executives, just to come back in a year later to say, hey, we made a mistake, we need consumer presence, we need a human to talk to our customers. So uh, that iterative approach, rather than going big bang and saying, hey, we don't need anyone, and then a year later come back and say, no, we made a mistake, we need to come back and kind of fix it. I think every organization will adopt that risk management and the kind of risk they want to take in their evolution. uh, from where I see, from a large, organization which are very, regulated and other, I think it will be a slow evolution. They want to stress test everything that they're really solving in a compliant way and a risk free way, and then take it from that perspective. I think the use case of AI ML, if I look at it from a financial industry perspective around fraud management and other, has been quite long. It's just coming to the fore and coming more to the surface now, where everybody understands and there's more conversation around it. Uh, as far as the experience around generating content, or kind of, going back to your databases and, really having those curated eh, content for your user, I think that journey is still evolving. It's your output will be as good as the input you're going to provide, and those models train on what amount of data. And I think most of the industries are currently exploring that out. That's my sense at this.
Very clear and very useful as well. So, what I understand, my takeaway is that spraying AI across the entire service life cycle is not going to work. It is almost like taking value shots at specific parts of the life cycle where you think that you can get ROI, or there's a possibility of delivering a service quality which is superior than what is there currently. And that's where the experiments need to be conducted, and then build the business case for actually scaling it from there. So it makes a lot of sense over there. But then let's maybe park AI for some time. In the context of merchant payments, and how dealing with different merchants, technology is one thing. Technology is one side which pushes the need for transformation. But do you see that there is a change in the actual merchant or slash customer behavior, which also is demanding a different way of serving them, or different way of building products for them?
That's a great point, and I'll relate to kind of the experiences I had over last 1 year. And I work in the fintech and payment space, which industry, which perennially is a complex field for many of the industries to navigate. Like, these industries understand their consumer, but when it comes to payments, it's a lot of complexity that they have to kind of deal with in one go. Uh, if I go back to my consumer base and kind of recall, I think the fundamental ask of the merchant or my consumer base hasn't changed or hasn't evolved in terms of the ask. The ask is same. How can I serve my consumer better? How does it make business sense for me? I think those two fundamental questions haven't changed. Now, what will these technologies do is they will embed in one of these streams to either help merchants understand their consumer base better, address those unknown gaps, or the blind spots they have, and surface it for them, or it will in that the technology will come where their payment experience will become better, the redundancy will become better by the use of different technologies, which gives them a better business outcome. Now, if you ask me, when I go to a merchant, if I tell them whether I use technology A versus technology B, it doesn't impact them too much. I think what really drives them is what's the outcome of that, how it's helping their consumers, how it's helping their business, and how they can do it more on a sustainable and a kind of scale up basis. I think those questions haven't changed at this point of time. Now it gives them our merchants get a great deal of confidence when we tell them that we are kind of early up on those technology changes, and we are embedding those technologies. It gives a great boost in terms of the scalability of our the future tech proofing of our platform. But again, that's not a key determinant to make that decision. The key determinant is what's the value for the consumer and what's the value for them.
Makes sense. Makes sense. On the consumer side, Mahinder, one of the observations, and you know, uh, this is across digital products, not necessarily just payment products. We started noticing that there is a diminishing customer patience, whatever interaction they want to have. And I'm quite sure payments is also subject to that change in customer behavior, and them wanting to have things faster. I don't know. That's a perception. And if you see the momentum for most companies, is always about making everything one click or faster. It is that. Do you see such changes, whether on the merchant side, whether on the customer side?
The- See, I'll step back here. I've been part of conversation where we start talking about agentic e-commerce and other, like, one click, and an agent does a whole transaction for a consumer. Uh, have I seen this being asked by a lot of industry that I kind of work around, and across different organization of people I have with? I think it's too early in that cycle. Those tools have to stand the test of trust, the test of being I think it's about accuracy, it's about being trust that needs to be solved in those parts. Can an agent really solve your payments need and do a payment on your behalf? Yes, it can. Do you trust the agent? I don't know how many consumers really do that at this point, right? uh, and again, with any product, they have to go through that journey of really building that great rapport with their consumers before they can start trusting them. And what we are seeing is some proof of concept at the very early side. It gives me great play. Uh, I feel very excited when I go through those payment schemes and they start talking about agentic e-commerce and the kind of capability they're building. Uh, I think the future looks pretty exciting at this point. But is the market ready? Is the consumer ready? Is the consumer willing to trust such products? It's an open question at this point of time. I don't think anybody has nailed it at this point of time, and a lot of consumers are in the early cycle of just learning what it means for them, what AI means to their day-to-day life. And there are other scenarios where AI may come and solve that problem for them much before the AI comes and solves the payment needs for.
Very interesting points. The trust aspect, and
Yeah.
this is whether AI or any other emerging tech, they always go through this trust test. An agent comes, and I love your example. So agent comes and you know is you able to do the entire transaction in one click, and the customer's like, what happened? Is this saved? Did something happen to my money? Which means the human psychology is still at play. The fundamental human psychology has not changed, because while we have an accelerated change in emerging tech, we've accelerated change in what we're able to provide the human being. The fundamental biology of the human, the psychology of human has not changed so much. And if we are enabling things just to be faster, or if we're enabling things just to be agenting in the background, may not always work, because you still have the human at the center.
Yeah. Yeah. See, my sense there, Amber, is that we know that these tools and these agents can do and meet your payment. They can do transaction on your behalf. We still don't know what will happen if things start going wrong there, right? And that's where, how do we recover from there? Because so far, as a consumer, I feel more empowered when I have to do those dot, 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 or tap, tap, tap in order to complete a transaction. I know I am in control. I know at what point I can still call it off. But once I leave it to a bot or an agent, I just don't know what will happen there, right? And then how will those machine interactions help me recover if things go wrong? Will it be a human, or will it be I'm dealing with another bot? So all those kind of user journeys and all those use cases, I think, have to be thought through, right, end to end before they become mass deployable. Uh, and of course, again, I'm not saying that they won't work. What I'm saying is they are at the very early cycle. They needs to be validated. They need to get that trust, gain that consumer confidence before they can be deployed at scale.
A lot of sense. A lot of sense. Now, companies have to and are being pushed to build for what I call the future edge. They have to build future ready products, because the rate of change of technology is so fast. You cannot build a product which is relevant 6 months later. You have to build a product which is relevant 5 years later. Is there a need for change in the product building process to account for this? Or do you think that what were the fundamentals before are still going to hold true?
See, my sense is that when we talk of 5 years or 10-year journey, we know, and with these tools, we are talking of a new org structure or a new way of working there. All right. So the teams need to evolve. Uh, let's take a prime case of, say, product management. The common triad: engineering, UX, and product management. I think what these tools have given is an opportunity to each of these, tried members to kind of fail fast. For a UX team or a product team, it has given them the tools to kind of go through that prototype cycle much quickly, validate that data, deploy that data from an engineering perspective, deploy that tool, and kind of learn and what needs. So from a future perspective, I believe the organizational structure will change and it will become much more AI native, if I can say. Getting those tools embedded into your day to day. Maybe Excel gets replaced by Excel plus a tool, which does a better data analysis for it. The UX may be a Figma or Adobe with AI assistant inboard, kind of embedded into them, which kinds of help them deploy and give them different variations so that it can be deployed very fast. Or a PM can be with your PM plus a AI, which kind of gets all the data together and kind of brings it everything together. So fundamentally, what you're going to see, what I can envision is that each of these members will see more and more tools available so that they can focus more on the consumer and the problem and what they're trying to learn, and leave the hard grind to these tools so that they can, kind of massage that data, interpret that data, and give them the outcome. So the way I look at this evolution is that each of these team members will have so much available to them so that their operational, the operational stress to kind of come to a point where they can make a sense out of that will go away, and they can kind of evolve much faster, iterate much faster, and kind of deploy much faster.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So, number two, to the audience that we are speaking to product managers, to CXOs who are building products or running businesses which are dependent on digital transformation, customer experience, and product platforms. What are the few guiding principles which you may give, which help them uh, respond to the current state of transformation as well as be future ready?
Yeah, I think looking at talking from my perspective and my team perspective, I think one thing which is very clear to me, and that's what I kind of talk to my team a lot about, is that the fundamentals of doing business in terms of what is your customer asking you to do hasn't changed. It's becoming more and more demanding for you. The consumer expects to get the things done in no time, as quickly as possible, and as best way as possible. And I think the same goes for business. They want you to deliver the best value, looking at their business consideration, looking at their consumer. I think what is fundamentally changing is how we're going to reach that end goal, right? And that is getting rapidly transformed. If you really ask me, with the advent of different tools and different technology around, all the LLMs to AI to whatnot is coming. What it does for each of these emerging PMs or future leaders is that uh, it gives you everything to reach out to your consumer and understand your consumer much deeply at this point. You can go hyper personalization to kind of hyper you know deploying products and technologies at scale in terms of anything that solves that scale for you. So the learning curve has really shrunk, if I can be very clear there. And what it does is when the learning comes straight, which means the evolution becomes much faster. So every evolution will happen much faster. So all these leaders have to be prepared to kind of iterate and pivot quite rapidly, that pace of the change has really become too fast. In a blink of fire, and in few months, things may change quite fast there. And I think all these emerging leaders have to be really prepared for that change and that happening at a rapid pace. I think from a leadership perspective, I think what they really matter for them is how it's delivering value to the consumer base, how efficient those tools are, and how it's going to help us becoming much better in the way we do day-to-day business and the value we add to the consumers. I think as long as those are aligned from a leadership perspective, you're going to get all the investments. But when I look at from my team perspective and the emerging PM's perspective, I think what I just see is the fundamentals of solving the consumer problem, the solving the business problem hasn't changed. It's just the way we approach them, and the cycle of that change has become much more condensed at this point.
And this has been fantastic. I want to be respectful of the time that we actually have from you. On that, I know we are about 5 minutes over, but I really appreciate you sharing your insights, and thank you so much. This is fantastic perspectives. I think it'll be very helpful for the audience to think about how to be future ready. How do you build in the context of what's changing out there? So thank you.
Yeah. No, thanks, Amber. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.